question and there it goes. So begin with introductions tonight. One of the things we're very fortunate here, one of our incoming kindergarten parents and current parents is also a District 200 staff member, and we're pleased to have her here tonight. That's Erica Locano, who's our District 200 Director of Communications. She's actually going to be moderating this evening, meaning that if you have a question, please enter it in the chat bar directly to Erica. Erica will read the question, and then I will direct the question to the appropriate personnel to answer that, or myself, if I'm the one who's actually answering the question. I'd like to introduce our kindergarten team tonight. Here with us, we have Sybil Scatia, who's our AM/PM teacher. There's Sybil. And Debbie Dudek, who's one of our ADK teachers. And Kate Zamus, who's another one of our all-day kindergarten teachers. And then Sarah Davis, who's our other all-day kindergarten teacher. So we have a wonderful kindergarten team. I know it's not the ideal way to meet them tonight if you're a first-time parent, but certainly there will be a day or time where you will get to meet them in person too. We also have Jody Gossain, who's our school nurse, here with us tonight. So if you have any questions pertaining to the health and wellness of your students, she's here to answer them. And then we also have literally the person who runs the school. I truly don't. It's my secretary, Diane Cokerda. So Diane's here tonight, and she's here certainly as a resource for anything that may flow through her office that she could answer questions for you too. We also do have two parents here who are part of our PTA board. Our current PTA president, which is Jenny Stanko. So Jenny's joining us tonight, and then next year's PTA president, Karen Doring, was. Both of them are gracious to give up their evening here to join us this evening also too. So again, I'd like to officially welcome you here tonight. It's wonderful to have you here. We're going to begin just by opening it up for any questions that you may have. Again, please enter those into the chat bar directly to Erica. Again, it is being recorded, and she'll read out the questions, and I'll direct them appropriately.
Well, kindergarten team, you guys must have had an excellent information video because nobody has any questions.
Like everything else, parents, that we've done this year, this is a first time for us doing it this way as opposed to doing it in person. So we understand there may be a little bit of nerves or jitters on all fronts within there too. But rest assured, please answer any question. We normally do a building tour, as like this portion of our evening with myself and our PTA presidents. And I know it's a much different, much more intimate setting because we usually get quite a few questions during that time. So please feel free to ask any question that you may be wondering about.
There's a question about how do you register for full day kindergarten?
How do you register for full day kindergarten? Okay, I'm going to actually turn that over. Diane, you want to handle that? Just go over the the registration and enrollment requirements for all day kindergarten parents.
Sure. Actually, all the forms are online currently. If you want to access those documents, they're on the cusd200.org website, or you can contact us at the Wiesbrook office. The attendance secretary is Allie Carino, and she has an email she can send out to you that has all the links you could possibly need for registering. There'll be some backup documentation you'll need to provide, there's a list of that available. So if you have any other questions regarding registration, please let me know.
I know some of the questions came in order, but I'm gonna kind of ask the questions as it relates to like kind of group topics together. So sure. I will make sure to get everybody's questions. How many children can enter full day kindergarten? I guess how many spots are there for full day kindergarten, or the number we're hoping for the fall?
Good question. I mean, there isn't a cap on the number of students that could enter all day kindergarten. With the exception of it's determined by our classrooms and the capacity we have. Obviously, this year during COVID, the capacities were different, and they were, instead of having a cap like we used to have in previous years, which the cap in previous years was 26. This year it was determined by the 6 foot social distancing, health and safety requirement put out by the CDC. So really it was the square footage of the room that determined the cap in the classroom. Literally what I did and Diane did, we spent more time than we wanted to in the summer measuring with teachers to ensure that desks were 6 foot apart. And so this year, most of the classrooms this year ranged from 15 to 19 students this year. So if that didn't change going into the fall, you would see, if that CDC requirement didn't change, you would see similar sizes within those classrooms. However, a bit of good news, if you weren't aware, for parents, the CDC did come out with new guidelines for reopening schools within the last 2 weeks. And their positivity rates and cases per 100,000 are really what are driving those, their determinations in terms of allowing whether we have 6 foot in classrooms or less. And there is, the good news is we see there is some light there of that opening up where they're allowing 6 foot or less. Now there are some requirements you have to meet, but the way it's going with vaccines and the distribution, we intend 2 things. Number one, our sole goal as a district is having 5 days a week of in-person learning from our early childhood through our high schools. We had that goal last year in May, and that'll having that goal with a lot more unknowns than we have now after going through this for a whole year allowed us, as the one of only 2 elementary school districts within DuPage County, I think out of 36, Erica, that had full in-person learning for 5 days a week. So that's our intent moving forward. Our intent is to hopefully have as many students as possible in our home schools.
Along the same lines of all-day kindergarten, what are the main differences between the daily schedule of half days versus full days?
Okay, I'm going to turn that over to one of my kindergarten teachers want to handle that question in terms of, I would talk about 2 things. One, just the time, and 2, maybe a couple of the schedule and curricular aspects of that.
I can answer that.
Thanks, Sybil.
So for half day, currently right now, all day kindergarten, they go for 4 hours. And for my half day, they go 2. So I have a AM from 9 to 11, and then my PM's 11.
Sybil, you got muted somehow.
Sorry, thanks. I don't know where.
11 to 1.
11 to 1 is the all day, right, kindergarten, sorry. And then AM currently right now, we're at from 9 to 11. And then my PM is from 11:30 to 1:30. So in a traditional year, the all day kindergarten, I think someone's asking about like curriculum and schedule and that kind of thing. Traditionally, the all day kindergarten would get art and music as part of their educational day. And, but we do like the same, I follow the same curriculum and I meet the same curriculum needs as an all day kindergarten as well. They might just be getting a little bit more like reinforcement with whatever we're working on. But that's kind of the difference. So hopefully I answered that to the best I could.
Can you talk about the before and after care schedule? What programs are available for before and after care, and what is the schedule?
Sure. Every school in District 200 does have what's called a before and after school program. We affectionately call it BASP, for BASP. And we have, I'm very fortunate that my secretary, Diane, ran BASP for a number of years. Diane, you want to just talk briefly, since you have real intimate knowledge of BASP and its schedule and how that works?
Sure. Traditionally, with a full day of school, we would be open as early as 7 in the morning till 9, and then the children would be transitioned to their classroom at 9 a.m. And then again in the afternoon, it would be from 3:30 till 6. This year, things are a little abbreviated, so hopefully it wouldn't affect us next year, but they do run a program this year that's a little bit shorter, from 7:30 to 9, and again from 1 o'clock to, I believe, 4:30. But again, that shouldn't impact anyone next year, hopefully. They offer a breakfast in the morning and a snack in the afternoon. They have a lot of fun programs for the kids. They do homework, they do crafts, they have a movie day, they go outside when weather permits, and they just have a lot of fun games and activities for the kids. That pretty much sums it up at a very affordable cost.
And Diane, go ahead and stay unmuted. How do we get set up for Parent View to register?
For Parent View, that's something I'm not so familiar with. Maybe one of our parents might be able to help with that question.
I believe once the school takes the forms, then you should get an email from the district registration office with information about your Parent View codes and your sign-in information.
Oh, that's correct. Once you're completely registered, there will be a letter that's generated. And I think that's probably going to go to you through an email as well. And it will give you a code so that you can log in and set up your own personal information. Most of the information is inputted on our end. The opportunity to put in some other things such as emergency contact information, so that we'd like to have that record in the system as well.
Dr. Tarina, can you speak a little bit about the buses? Can kindergartners sit with their older siblings on the bus?
Yeah, they can. Certainly you have, again, you have what buses look like pre-COVID and COVID, right? So we'll start talking about pre-COVID because that's essentially what that question is asking about. Even though in COVID, we do allow them to sit. Actually, we try and encourage, because that's more of a cohort, them to sit with their own family members. So yes, they are allowed to sit in either way with their family members within there too. There are some subtle differences though, sometimes with kindergarten routes, especially with the AM PM routes. Diane, you want to speak just real briefly about that?
Okay. When it comes to kindergarten half-day program, we have a midday route that runs, and usually there's an inbound and an outbound route. Kindergartners that attend the morning program will ride the big bus in with their siblings, but when they're dismissed at 11:45, they take a bus home with just the kindergarten students. And the opposite is true about the afternoon program. They'll come in on a bus just with the kindergarten students. Pickup is sometime after 12:30, and then they go home on the big bus with their siblings at 3:30.
And those routes that Diane were referring to in the midday, Diane and myself, either both of us or one of us on that first day or two, sometimes even three, will physically ride the routes. One, to make sure that we have all of our students on the bus, on the correct bus, and the routes are correct. It's more complicated than it seems, and we want to make sure all students are accounted for and we get them home in the right place. And what we'll tell you is on those days, that's going to cause those buses to be delayed, just because I'd rather have kids safe and getting on the right bus and going home than to be exactly on time. But one of us will be on the bus, and then it's a good way for us when they get off the bus. Most time parents want to take pictures, and if I'm there, I get a chance to say hi and interact with you real briefly too. So just a word about those, a little special note about those routes.
And one thing about the routes, kindergarten, because you're new coming into the building, we don't have information about your preference of transportation. So prior to school starting, and preferably at the first part of the school year for us is usually around August 1st, we'd love to hear from you and know what your mode of transportation will be for your student. If the child's car, rider, walker, or planning on riding the bus, we'll notate that in our Parent View accounts. And at the same time, this year we're talking about sending out a questionnaire to families to find out what your intentions are for transportation, so we can have our bus list prepared in advance to the first day of school. And I know often parents don't want to send their student on the bus right away the first week or two. Welcome to add them at any time.
Just another note on buses, just from a practical communication standpoint. If for some reason, let's say you are a bus rider or a car rider and you change the mode of transportation for that day, because life happens, right? Whatever, something in your family causes that to happen. Don't rely on sending an email to the teacher and having them see that, because they're teaching, right? And they're busy. So we always ask that you contact the office directly, and it's okay if you like put the teacher on that, but we're going to see that in the office much quicker than a teacher is during the day, because sometimes we'll have new kindergarten parents and they get angry at a teacher and said, well, how can they not see that? Well, my answer to them is because they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're teaching within there too. So we always ask that you put the office on the email, certainly put the teacher on there, but it's the office who's going to get, and we're going to handle that anyways. That's going to flow through us. If the classroom teacher was going to receive it, they're going to let us know anyways also too at that particular time. So just a little note, same thing with things like related to before and after, if you're in BASP or any sort of clubs, flow all those things through the office, because we're going to be managing that communication.
When can families expect to find out if they got into full day kindergarten?
Yeah, good question. Traditionally, and Diane, you help me out on this one too, it's usually around 1st of June is when the district has officially notified families, if I'm remembering that correctly.
Yes, I believe so. Hopefully more like late May. Deposits are usually requested after the 1st of June.
And when can families expect to be able to sign up to elect their choice or put in their request for their choice?
The all-day kindergarten program, I believe, is scheduled for March 24th, I think, Brian.
I believe I'm double checking with my calendar right now.
And that is a sign-up day. If you have an interest in all-day kindergarten, you're requested to go online on that given day, starting at 8 a.m. It's a first come, first serve selection. So we do timestamp everyone who signs up and has an interest in all-day kindergarten.
Yeah, you're correct, Diane. It's March 24th is the all-day kindergarten registration starting at 8 a.m. and that's through Synergy.
And then Diane, if families want to make their choice for full day or half day, do they have to have all their medical forms in by that time to make their selection, or can they go ahead and make their selection without having all their forms in?
That's correct. You can make your choice prior to having all your medical forms in.
And there's a parent in the chat bar that mentioned that they turned in all the forms but did not get any information about Parent View. Diane, I'm going to take that name down and then I'll get that to you so you can follow
That'd be helpful. Thank you. I just want to mention we do have someone new working in the office that is handling a good part of the registration. So if you find you're in need of something related to the registration, just give us a call.
That's all I see so far. Any other questions?
I have a question. Can you hear me? If I have another child who's already in a District 200 school, I don't need the proof of residency, do I? The proof of residency forms, items?
Actually, you do. Every incoming student into our building would need to prove residency.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think, Diane, the only exception to that is if they're currently attending Jefferson Early Childhood Center, then they do not need to do proof of residency at Wiesbrook, correct?
That is correct. I'm sorry. Mhm.
Any other questions on there, Erica? Okay, here's one. That'll be me, right? If I'm reading that correctly. Do you want to read that, Erica?
Yep. When do you expect to be able to provide an update regarding hours for next school year, going back to traditional versus current COVID hours?
As soon as we can. If I could do it tomorrow, I would do it tomorrow and had that crystal ball. No, quite honestly, we're and Erica knows this because she sits in a lot of our meetings. We're actively working very hard. Really, we're living as principals in three worlds right now. One, the day-to-day world. We're also living in the world of looking at what is the rest of this year going to look like in terms of, will the health and safety guidelines issued by, the CDC allow us to expand our current day or bring more students back to the middle schools and the high schools? And then we're also planning for next year. So it's a really interesting time from that perspective. It feels a lot like, last April and May, quite honestly, right now. Diane and I were just talking about that today. So there is no timeline right now in terms of when we'll know that. A lot of those things are going to be again dictated by really the health and safety statistics that are out there. But again, I'll reiterate that District 200's goal is right now to have all of our children EC 12 next year full in person 5 days a week. That's our goal. That's where we're starting from, and that's how we're operating and planning. If the health and safety protocols and statistics tell us differently, then we'll adjust from there, like we did, quite honestly, last summer. But last summer we went through all different kinds of iterations of schedules to get us to the point. But certainly we weren't able to get there right away at the middle school and high school. But I would feel if your parents, the good news, and your first time parents, again, the good news is at the elementary level, again, we were only one of two school districts out of 36 in DuPage County that did open up 5 days a week for full in-person learning. And I will tell you, it was significantly more overwhelming from my perspective, the challenge looking forward from last spring to going through the summer than I see it from here moving on out, just from my own perspective right now.
Maybe this is for Jody. Is there a time to meet with the nurse and or teachers to talk about an incoming student with food allergies?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I would love to talk to you sooner rather than later. So if your child has a special health need, you can either email me at jodygossain@cusd200.org or call me during the school day. I really would like to talk to you ahead so that we can get all the paperwork in order and get the classroom plans ready before the first day of school. So please do reach out and contact me. I will be at Wiesbrook tomorrow, but I have a lot of Institute Day meetings to attend, but you could give us a call on Monday. Thank you.
If your child is at Jefferson, do you still need to bring in the birth certificate and sign documents at Wiesbrook?
Those records that are currently at Jefferson should contain the birth certificate and will be transferred to us directly at the end of the school year. So you should not need to bring that in.
There's another question about AM, PM kindergarten and when we will know which session we're in, and do we sign up in parent view at some point? And I think we had said that the sign up will be available starting March 24th at 8 a.m.
Well, that's for 80. That's 80K. This was about AM, PM. Is that correct?
Yes, sorry, Brian. With
That's
AM,
okay.
PM kindergarten, when will we know which session we're in and how do we make that request?
To make the request, it's on our kindergarten questionnaire, right? Correct, Diane, which is on our website, the link for that.
Yes, it is.
So if you haven't gone on and filled out that kindergarten questionnaire, please do so, because that allows us to see who's requesting AM or PM kindergarten. In terms of when do we notify parents, generally speaking, I like to let parents know near the end of June. So I recognize for working parents and for planning purposes, it's helpful. There have been some circumstances that have mitigated that, where I've had to move it to August for a variety of reasons, but more times than not, it's been in the end of June where I've notified parents to try and give you as much time as possible to plan. And a word about AM PM, we can't meet everyone's request. If you don't get your request, what we will do, I can tell you, we will put you on a waiting list. Kindergarten is the most unpredictable enrollment pattern in just about any school district. That's just not me talking. I'm speaking from demographers who have worked with us, and we do have demographers who frequently do enrollment studies for us, and they'll note that. And so it's a very transient population, very hard to predict the in and out. So just hang with us on that. If you don't get your request on that, we'll put you on a waiting list. Many times we're able to accommodate some of those requests within there for a variety of reasons. But even if you don't, a little known hint and secret, I always like to tell parents, and, Sybil can attest to this as an AM PM teacher, a little known secret is PM kindergarten. It's a really beautiful place. And a lot of parents who initially didn't want it, and then they choose PM kindergarten, and they're like, I wish it's the best thing that I ever did was choose PM kindergarten. So I don't know if do we have anyone on here who can speak to that at all, having that PM kindergarten experience?
Yes, I can.
I thought, Karen, so.
Yeah, I have 3 boys that were at Wiesbrook. I have a 6th grader now, and then I have a 3rd grader and a 1st grader, and all my boys did the PM kindergarten, and I loved it. It was such a big decision. Like, what do I remember for my oldest? What should I do? I was asking my older sisters and friends who already had kids that went through kindergarten, and a handful of people said, if you don't have to be up and going rushing in the morning. It was, my oldest. And so it is, you're right, Brian. I enjoyed it for all 3 of my boys. And it's just a nice community. You get to hang out with the parents at drop off and at pickup. And it was really a good experience for sure. And it's less crazy at that time to drop off compared to the morning when there's a lot of kids and busy.
Thanks, Karen. I appreciate it.
Do we need to email copies of all the documents together, or can the vision dental health forms be sent later after appointments in the coming months or during the summer?
I can answer that for you. We typically take all the registration forms separate from the medical and dental and vision forms. Those come in generally a little bit later for different reasons. And there is a deadline that Jody will speak to about when she needs to have those medical forms, but it will be at the start of the school year. So you can take your time on that. And Jody, if you have some.
Sure. Yeah, we would like the physicals before the first day of school. The eye exams aren't due until October 15th, so you've got an extra month on that one. And the dental forms aren't due until the following May. So you really have the whole school year to get that one done.
You're muted, Erica.
Sorry. Can you hand in all the forms at the same time?
Yes, that would be great. If you have everything together, fantastic, send it on in. We've actually already had one this week. I was pretty excited to get all my paperwork. Makes me a very happy nurse when I have it beforehand.
Will full day kindergarten be the same length as the full school day for the rest of Wiesbrook next year?
Yes, that would be the goal. That would be the goal, to have it have the same hours as we had previous years too. Yep.
That's all I see in the chat bar right now.
Great questions, parents. I appreciate all the questions that you're asking. As Karen just spoke, remember, we do have another parent, Jenny Stankwiner. So if you do have questions that may be slanted from a parent, you want an honest answer from a parent, they're certainly here and can answer those questions for you. Certainly, our classroom teachers, a lot of us have been directed tonight to me and to Diane and Jody, which is great, but there may be something germane for a classroom teacher.
I was going to mention also that Karen and Jenny can probably speak to is the school supplies. Typically,
Definitely. I have a couple of things. So I have 3 kids. My oldest is in 5th grade. He was in AM. I have a daughter in 3rd grade. She was in AM, and I will have a kindergartner next year, and she will be my all-dayer. And really, she's an older birthday girl. She's in a pre-K class now. And really, that it's kind of what helped me make that decision. So it really is kind of not, it's based on your kid and what you think. And I have heard a lot about that PM class being a little secret spot. But for the same time, I liked having the afternoons with them. And so doing that, 9:15 drop off was better for my family. So, it is kind of something that you guys have to decide there. But when it comes to school supplies, we actually are just signing a contract with Carlson's this week. So Carlson's in downtown Wheaton, they do a school supply program where the teachers, there's a teacher representative from each grade that puts together the school supply list of what kids will need for the next year. Carlson's takes that and sells us like a box, each student a box kit of school supplies. I believe that we're trying to have them be picked up at Carlson's in order to avoid shipping costs. They used to ship them to school. They didn't last year because of COVID. So everybody had to ship to home, which added on a shipping cost. So we're hoping to save money by having a weekend or so that's available, or a week of time or something that's available for you guys to pick them up at Carlson's. It's not required. You don't have to buy the school supply kit, but to put your $50 down or $60 at whatever your grade level supplies are and know that it's all there is a great feeling to not have to scour Target. But that's really, a personal choice whether or not you want to do that. But that option will be available to you. Unfortunately, I don't know when that kind of starts. We market that, but we will be doing it with Carlson's this year. So it'll be nice and local business.
Thanks for those insights, Jenny. Truly
Sure.
appreciate it. Yeah, I can handle it. I think I just saw that question, Erica. It's a question about, we'll be allowed to come in and see the classroom, drop off supplies. In traditional years, we would have what's called a kindergarten visitation, and we would be announcing that date at kindergarten roundup when you're there in person. Obviously, we didn't do that this year with intent, because we're still trying to see how the end of this year unfolds and what next year will look like. But be that as it may, going back to before the start of this year, our parents here can tell you that what we did do is we did do exactly that. We had a sign up before school started where I don't remember kindergarten teachers. Was it in 10 minutes? Was it 10-minute increments where parents could sign up? I see you shaking your head. Yes. So you would sign up where you could come in as parents with your child or children, and you could visit the classroom, meet the teacher, drop off supplies, various things. Anything that I'm missing on that kindergarten team? No. So we will do that again. I just don't have a date and a time yet, and exactly what that's going to look like. Last year, obviously, was a little different because we had so many more unknowns. And so I just give you that with that scenario, even under, and we were very much, we didn't have the experience we had this year in terms of, we were still very much leery about bringing people in the building. This year, obviously, with almost a full year under our belt and knowing all the mitigations and safety protocols, and also seeing those numbers decrease in terms of tests per 1,000 and test positivity rate. With vaccines rolling out, I feel very confident we'll be able to obviously get parents and your children in the building again. We will do that.
Jenny, will an email be sent out about ordering supplies?
Yes, we will use the list that we have, that we pulled all of this information to send you the Zoom stuff from. So as those come in, I will get the updated list from Allie in the office of those parents, and then there'll be a flyer with a link to order. Yes.
Anything else from our parents who are here? Again, so you've had wonderful questions. Anything else that you can think of that we didn't cover in the presentation, because that certainly could be the case. Like I said, our first time doing that virtually, it's not the same as being in person, where you can, certainly from my perspective, I can read a room a little bit better. And then also, when you're going on a tour, certainly I think there's a much more comfort level once people start asking questions, and you're able to actually see the building. And I'm able to specifically talk about a lot of things when we go around on that tour. So I anticipated fewer questions tonight than we've had on those nights within there too.
I have just kind of a general comment. I know there might be a couple of things that were talked about in a traditional roundup that maybe weren't this year. Girl Scouts and Boys and Cub Scouts. So those are two things that are active in Wiesbrook. So that's definitely something to think about if you have a child that would be interested in that. That's obviously starts in kindergarten. But even in COVID, we had our Battle of the Books Club, which is 4th and 5th grade, Green Club, which is K through 5, Science Olympiad, which is 3 through 5. And then trying to think if there were anything else, but we've had those clubs run actively through Zoom throughout this year. So we're hoping that many of them will hopefully be able to come back live, depending upon what the new rules will be. But as when my 5th grader, when I was a first time parent, I remember the first thing I walked in knowing nobody. And I know that the best thing that I could do was to volunteer and, get involved as much as you can and as much as your schedule allows. So there are definitely volunteer opportunities when in a traditional world. In the classroom, there are things that if you're a working parent and can't be here that you can still do to volunteer. So that would be a good thing if you have it available in your time to do that, because I know there's nothing more than my kids liked seeing than me coming to school and reading sight words or doing whatever. So hopefully there'll be those opportunities. You can be a room parent. There's lots of different things to be done. So hopefully you look forward to doing that for your kids too.
If I could just touch on what Jenny mentioned about volunteering, we'll also be, depending, this past year we didn't do it, but depending on what we can do for next year, sending out a volunteer survey. So you can then see all the different opportunities that Jenny mentioned and things that would work with your schedule. And then we'll go ahead and take a look and reach out to see if you're still able to, and kind of let you know what everything involves. So, but yeah, like Jenny said, there's so many great different opportunities to volunteer, and it is really cool to see your little one in school and they get really excited.
And definitely that volunteer survey, Karen, is sign up for everything you think you might be involved in, and there's never an obligation. So if you sign up to, is an interested parent in anything, when that activity comes up or that event comes up or whatever, that chairperson will reach out to you. If something's changed or you decide that you didn't want to be part of that, no problem at all, they'll take you off the list. But at least you'll get those notifications as the planning starts for those events and parties and whatever it may be.
There's a question about do our kids bring lunches, or are there hot lunches available?
So in a traditional setting, if we were back to a full school day, I think that's what that question is referring to, that when we do have lunch in school, yes, you can either or. You can send your child or children to school with a lunch that you make for them, or we do have full food service with hot lunch available for students on a daily basis. And you have a card. It's like a debit card that you load money onto your account, and so your child will have that card. And when they walk through an actual line with our lead food service person, Miss Karen, and Miss Karen loves kids, and she'll take that card and then she records the number. But even if your child, because they're kindergartners, right? We forget things. They're going to forget their card. They're going to lose their card, and this does happen. Teachers can attest to this. We will never send a child home hungry. Those are some of the angry phone calls I get. And I usually talk about this in the tour because I take into the lunchroom. Usually what happens is they get too scared to tell anyone, and they sit there, and sometimes they cry, and sometimes we'll notice, obviously, and then we're able to intervene, but sometimes they don't. And then when they either get home off the bus or you pick them up, the tears come out. And what's wrong? I didn't get a lunch. We get the angry phone call. You didn't feel will never happen if we know. So we always encourage, children. It's part of teaching them to be independent, and it's what our kindergarten teachers would tell you, is that they just have to let us know. And even if they can't remember their number, we'll look up their number and we'll get them a lunch. If we have to make them a lunch, if we have to We have snacks that are there in school in our before and after school program. Nurse's office has snacks. Most of our teachers do. We would never send a child hungry, but yes, there is a cold and there is a hot lunch available on a daily basis for students, and you can send their lunch also.
And for me as a parent, my kids are big milk drinkers. So even though they might bring their own lunch every day, they can still get milk. I didn't know this until I got a bill that my children were starting to take milk at school. And then I got a $40 bill for milk. And I'm like, oh, okay, they can get milk at school each day. I didn't know that they were drinking milk for lunch. So I know that even if you choose not to do the hot lunch, you can get, kids can get milk.
So when I see Vinny and AJ tomorrow, I can say you owe your mom $40.
Yeah. There's a question, Dr. Tarina, talk about, or maybe teachers, how did the kindergarten students handle the COVID changes this year?
Yeah, I'll answer it first, and then I'll have our teachers talk about it. So, going back to when we were going, particularly in August, when we were going through iteration after iteration of schedule, as the guidance from the CDC and IDPH and DuPage County Health Department was changing. Literally, Jody knows this, by the hour. And so it was very, very difficult from a planning perspective, and we have reopening teams within all of our schools. And as I was meeting with those teams, that's something that came up frequently with our teachers and with parents, wondering, how are our kids? Are they going to keep their masks on? Are they going to be able to stay apart? Are they not going to touch each other? And you know what? I wrote this in our yearbook letter this year to our kids. I never had a doubt. I've worked at the high school level for 14 years, 14 years at the elementary level. I've never had a doubt in our children. They always rise to the occasion of the expectations that we put before them. It really was us who were more nervous than anything. And our kids did it, and they did it beautifully. But I'll let our classroom teachers, if anyone wants to speak to that in terms of their experience.
Sure, I can jump in. So people ask this question a lot, and I say I'm honestly very surprised and proud of them with how resilient and flexible they've been this year. I mean, the biggest thing that we see, my teammates can agree, is kids just want to be friends and they want to be near each other and they want to hang out and play. And so we've done a lot of reminders of how to be safe. We're able to stay in school because we are spaced out. We can do different things in order to have that fun interaction and friendship building moments. The kids have done fantastic. Even with the winter months and not being able to go outside and take our breaks, we've been able to incorporate some independent play or playing alongside each other from 6 feet away. But I think my teammates will agree they have done a fantastic job. I'm really, really pleased and really proud of these young kids coming into school in such a different environment and doing as well as they have.
And I'm just going to jump in and say that I think we were more nervous about what it was going to look like. You have to remember that these kids have not been in a classroom, like a elementary school classroom. So their expectations were really different from ours. So my big concern was like, oh my gosh, will they be able to handle sitting at a desk? Because normally we sit at tables. They were thrilled. They were so excited to come in and see their desk and this book box. And so once that happened, it kind of opened my eyes like, wow, they don't know anything different anyway. And they were just excited. So, and I have seen that same excitement from last year to this year. It's kind of hasn't really been a distance except like, the putting those parameters in place for safety. But the mask wearing, I was nervous about that. All the parents did a great job. And I'm sure you have done too, that you have taught your kids how to be safe. And they have seen that, we've seen it in the classroom. Sure, a couple need reminders, pull it up over your nose, or when we're at our mask breaker, we have a snack break. We have to remind you, put it back on before you do anything else. So, but like Kate said, they just have been resilient and done an excellent job at following the guidelines.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks, Sybil.
I'll jump in. I feel as though I can't say much different. I will say I had my doubts about them keeping their masks on all day long. I was very, very pleasantly surprised. I have never had that issue of children wanting to rip them off. We have had them sneezing in their masks, but they're very good about going to the bathroom, switching it out, washing their hands, and coming right back out. They're very responsible about it, and honestly, they get it. So it's been a really great experience, I think, and I think they're still having a good time in school.
I absolutely agree. Also, there's not much more I can add also, but and one thing too is if a child does sneeze in their mask and they don't, we do have replacement masks also. So we're always stocked in our classroom. We've had children say, oh, they're trying to walk in the door and they're like, oh, I forgot my mask. They realize that they forgot their mask because they see everyone else. They're just so aware of it. And we just immediately go to our backup and we have clean masks for them, you know, to use. So no worries about that also. Hopefully one won't have to worry about that next year, but we do take care of that if they forget. But they've done a fantastic job. You'd never know that this was not the norm.
I do not have any other questions in the chat bar. I promise I did not touch a button. My hands were not even on my computer. I don't know what is going on.
Well, if there's no other questions, parents, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us tonight in this environment. You know, we look so forward to seeing your students next year, and there will be a visitation that will be held. Like I said, it's the format we had last year was right before school, and it was that supply drop off. It was a sign up time. You could see the classroom, meet your teacher. You know, went very smoothly and very well. So we will certainly have that, you'll have that opportunity again to do so. If you don't get emails from District 200, Erica, I just want so they can continue to get updates from the district because you're in charge of that and you send out weekly updates to parents so they can see the latest news in terms of what's going on with school and school schedules, et cetera, when planning for next year. Okay, if there's no other questions, thanks again, parents. It was great having you here tonight. A lot of thank yous. Thank you to being here tonight and asking the questions. If there's something that we didn't answer tonight, or if you think of something after this evening, please don't hesitate to reach out to any one of us who are on this call through an email or phone call. I miss those in-person conversations, quite honestly, too. So the next best thing I can do is a virtual like this or over the phone, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night and have a great weekend, too.